one thing I love to ask any artist that I have the opportunity to sit down with, and I'd love to hear from each of you, is what the first music you heard was, like around the house, from family members or whatever, when you really remember getting kind of turned on by it and being like, this is important, this is meaningful. And at what point did you realize not only do you love this, but you want to participate? This is something you need to like be part of, beyond just being in the audience.
You want to take it first?
Yeah. So I would say like the first music I ever heard was probably Eminem, the Marshall Mathers LP, and the only reason I got that was because I was specifically told by my parents that I couldn't because it was offensive, and I would put it in my boombox and listen to it really, really quietly because I was scared that they would knew that I had the album, and I loved it. And I think it just, I don't know, it kind of just started it for me.
It's kind of a classic story.
Yeah.
You know, when people were debating in the 80s whether or not to put stickers on albums, it was like, a lot of bands were like, yeah, please put the sticker on our album.
And I think it's cool and relatable because when we do meet and greets with our fans, I think it's similar for a lot of our fans. Like, my parents told me I can't listen to Attila, I can't go to the Attila show. And when you tell a kid not to do something, they want to do it more. So I think it's kind of ironic that we fall into that same boat.
Yeah. So that was kind of the first, okay, this is music and I love it. Where did it enter into the picture that you thought you could even do it?
So for me personally, it just started when I was probably like 10 years old, because I would go to New Jersey every single summer and visit my cousins. And they were a couple years older than me, and their friends were in a band. So we would go to their friend, they were like, hey, do you want to come to my friend's band practice in the basement? And I'm like, what's that? Like, I had no idea because I was just such a young kid, and we went to the basement and it was real people playing real instruments, and my mind was blown, like, as a little 10-year-old. I didn't know that people actually made the music.
Right.
And I instantly fell in love with the idea of being in a band and doing that. And it was just everything about it, the environment. Like, one of their guitarists was on steroids and smashed his guitar against the wall. There was so many girls there all the time. Like I was like, oh, this is great. Like, drugs, booze, girls, like smashing shit. Like, this is like the coolest thing you could ever do in life. And I'm like 10 years old. So from that day forward, I just dedicated my life to music and trying to figure out how to do that.
Yeah. Same question.
My first inspiration in music was like AFI and Avenged Sevenfold.
Rad.
And then just how much like Avenged Sevenfold, especially with like how good they were at guitar and all that stuff, made me want to like sit down and actually learn how to do all that stuff. But
Chris is like a challenge person. Like, if you're better than him at something, he'll figure out how to be better than you. So like, you know, Avenged Sevenfold shreds, so he's like, I gotta be better than them. Like, I gotta shred harder. Like,
tell him the Guitar Hero story.
Yeah, tell the Guitar Hero story. This is how you really started playing guitar, the Guitar Hero story.
Well, our tour manager that used to tour this, he was like so good at video games, and we got Guitar Hero, and then he would always beat me at Guitar Hero, and there was Cowboys from Hell from Pantera song. And he would like always beat me at that, so I just got annoyed one day and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go, like, screw you, I'm gonna go figure out how to play this on the guitar. And I went in the other room where like my amp guitar was, and like 5 minutes later came back out, I was like, well, I can play it on a real guitar like this little kid. Yeah, fuck you. You can't, I'll do it with a real guitar, bro.
That wins every time.
Yeah.
And in my neighborhood, there was a bunch of girls that lived in my neighborhood. And my buddy Brad Hayes got an acoustic guitar for Christmas, and he started like fumbling around with it, and all the girls in my neighborhood were like, that's so cool, he plays guitar. And I was like, damn, I need to get me one of those things.
Old standby. Yeah.
Well, it seems like we're all kind of influenced by the same motives.
Yeah.
Why are there so many girls here? Because they're in a band. Duh.
Well, sign me up. Yeah, and you mentioned AFI as well as Avenged. Those are both bands that, they're heavy, but they also have a lot of melody.
Yeah.
And they're both kind of dark and more theatrical, I think, than,
Yeah.
so like a lot of punk or hardcore bands or whatever. Was that part of the draw also? Was the whole sort of imagery around those bands?
Yeah, definitely. Like just seeing their concert live. I went to an AFI show when I was probably like 12 years old. My dad would take me to concerts, and when I saw them perform and the way they performed live, I was like so hooked and wanting to play live music. And so I think it was their energy of their show and everything at the same time. Like, it just kind of brought it all together.
That's a cool dad too.
Yeah.
Just taking you to that.
Yeah, he's pretty cool dude.
That's awesome. What was your first actual like band experience getting into a band?
First band experience? After that, I was like 13 years old, maybe a little younger than 13. I went to this summer camp called Camp Jam, and it was like rock and roll summer camp for kids. And then you basically like auditioned at it, and they put you in beginner, intermediate, advanced groups, and then you like found mutual people that like the same styles, and you just like have a week where you write or do a cover together. So, and then you do a concert at the end of the week. So that was like the first actual experience of playing with other musicians. And then that's what started my first local band.
That's awesome.
So
Mine was a high school talent show, but I was in middle school. And this was back in the day where you only met people at the mall. So I was,
Mall, Georgia.
you had nothing to do when you're like 12 years old except just go to the mall. So these high schoolers were like, hey, we're playing the Battle of the Bands in like 3 weeks and we don't have a vocalist. Like, do you want to scream and like, you get to be in a high school? I'm like, fuck yeah, like I'm a little middle schooler. I was like, yeah, and I was like, I never screamed before in my life, so I didn't know if I could do it or not.
Yeah.
And they're like, we're covering Smash Your Enemies by Hatebreed and Skin Like Winter by Zayo.
Wow.
So those were the two first songs I ever screamed in my life. And they came over to my parents' basement. I'd never screamed in a mic before. And I just went for it, and everyone's jaw dropped. They were like, holy shit, this guy's fucking good. And yeah, I was in middle school, but I got to like step into high school for the first time to play the high school Battle of the Bands, and I felt all cool and shit. That was my first experience.
That's amazing. Dude, I never knew that there was a Franz Zayo connection in your history somewhere.
Yeah, the first song I
awesome.
ever sang.
That's awesome.
you should tell them about the first time you auditioned for Attila.
Whoa.
When they were in the
We'll get there. put a pin in that.
what you wanted to play.
I just wanted to be the bass player, dude.
But we got to do your origin story, as it were.
My origin story. Well, I grew up with a pretty young mom, so she always had like a pretty in touch taste with music. So she was always playing like Alice in Chains, Aerosmith, Bad Religion. And I remember having a CD player, and I would go in her room and steal her CDs just because she had them, and I would listen to stuff like that, like Dr. Dre, Chronic 2000. But I'll never forget, like me and one of my friends, we were growing up, he was like, I gotta show you something. Similar story, we had to like go behind the shed. Like our parents are gonna be pissed if they hear us listening to it, and it was Body Count. Yeah, Cop Killer, and we're like, what the fuck is this shit?
You can say this?
You can say this? So it was funny, like looking back on it now, like, obviously the band we're in right now.
Yeah.
Say whatever the fuck we want. But I just remember that feeling of being like, this is, like, I don't know if this is bad, but I like it. And ever since then, it was like, it kind of opened up a broader door for things too, because then same kid was like, have you heard of this band Korn? I'm like, no. He's like, we have to go in the garage and listen to it. If our parents catch us, you're gonna get in trouble too. So it was Life is Peachy, and I just remember like,
Yeah.
like mind blown. It was crazy.
What's wrong with this guy?
Yeah, it was just like, it was weird, man. It's like some weird endorphin rush that you, as a child, you don't know that that's like, because at the time it was like that weird transition from grunge to like nu metal. You know what I mean? Remember that whole like,
Yeah, and you don't
Flip
know
over.
that that's happening. You
you don't
sense
know
it,
it's
but you don't-
happening,
yeah.
but you're kind of like, your parents are cool with Nirvana or, Alice in Chains, Stone Temple Pilots, shit like that, which I love all those bands as well.
But this is almost like now it's yours. Like yours.
Yeah, it was kind of at the point of my life, it was like the point where I wanted to start playing guitar, and like I was old enough to like figure out that's kind of something I wanted to do. And grunge was kind of like falling out. And I was just enamored with that kind of music.
You're like, no, Mom, the guitar has to have 7 strings.
Yeah. Like,
They're
I don't want
different now.
Yeah, exactly. I'm over here tuning down a 6-string guitar to like F when it shouldn't be tuned that low. You know what I mean? Now in hindsight, like, what the hell was I doing? But I think hearing those bands and like getting the feeling that, like, I don't know if this is wrong or if it's right, but it making me feel something. I like that feeling. And that's what I feel like music should do, is make you feel something. So I'll never forget, I saw Limp Bizkit on like, I forget, it was like MTV TRL? It was like TRL or something.
Yeah, TRL Live or whatever.
And I saw Wes Borland like just going crazy, and I was like, yo, like
Dressed
this
up
is
as like a
voodoo
voodoo monkey
always,
or something.
yeah, just always had this like awesome like stage presence, and that whole band just had like this crazy energy, and that was when like nu metal was like, boom, we're here, we're doing that. And that's when I was like, I want to do this for a living. And ever since then, I have been, you know what I mean? Since, I don't know, we all started touring when we were like teenagers.
Yeah, we're different we're different
15,
ages,
16.
but we all started touring like respectively like 15, 16 years old.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Touring in like
Different
Jeep
bands.
Cherokee, different bands, but like going on tour in a Jeep Cherokee or like in your mom's Astro van, and being complacent with just being able to go on tour. We would like show up to shows that we weren't even supposed to be on and be like, can we play? Can we just sell t-shirts? And
Yeah.
be like, yeah.
I remember like Attila's first tours when we were like 15, 16, and we would search the area we wanted to play on MySpace, and then we would search any shows within like 30 miles, and you could see which shows were booked on MySpace, and we would always hit them up and ask to play. And it was like 50-50 if they like let us jump on or not. But even if they said no, we would show up and put our equipment on stage before they knew.
Amazing.
And we would be like, hey, we're not even asking for money or a pizza or anything. Like, we're just
At that point, you're literally
asking
already
for
there. Yeah.
we're an
We're
opportunity.
already here. We already drove
And
here.
our equipment's already set up. I know that you said no in the message, but it's on stage, it's set up, we're gonna play.